After watching Murder Drone's The Promining, I realized I really should share with y'all the story of my one and only prom night, which is also one of the wackiest nights of my life. I may not have dealt with bullies pouring blood on me or disassembly drones getting crowned as prom queen, but it was something that would make most sitcoms sit back and contemplate what they just witnessed in shock and horror. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And sometimes it's good to kick back and tell a story rather than hack, slash, and analyze to claw out useful writing tidbits from the wreckage of other people's stories. In honor of the prom season that is coming to a close, and as a nod to all those shows and movies whose prom footage I'm currently using for this video, I will tell you the very true tale of my own prom. All of the following events are real. I have only changed the names to protect poor unfortunate souls from the cringe-inducing memories of that bizarre night. So, with that disclaimer out of the way, I'm going to get started with my story. To understand my prom night, we need to go back further in time to view a couple of different events that helped to shape that night. It all begins with a gal in my graduating class, Tina Santos, the girl who fell from grace and took it out on everyone. Tina was a very popular, very beautiful girl who had her eye on becoming the real world Regina George. To this end, she surrounded herself with a gaggle of girlfriends who were all extremely popular, extremely pretty, extremely petty, and very well connected. Tina utilized this popularity to get elected into the student body government as the junior class president. She coveted this position because it would give her the chance to control prom, the night that was meant to be hers. However, the seniors had different plans. Even though my school's administration said that the juniors were in charge of planning prom, the seniors were the ones who wielded the real power and always had the final say. Tina's perfect night was shredded to pieces and replanned by the senior class representatives. No Regina George moment for her, unless we talk about the fall from grace. Yeesh.
Take that fake apology and shove it right up your hairy...
Well, she didn't get hit by a bus, but her reputation most certainly did. While all of this was going down, Tina did something very dumb. She made an enemy of all the Jews on campus. My school had a very diverse student body population, with tons of kids from different backgrounds and religions. One group that had a very significant presence on my campus were the Jews, who were in all kinds of cliques, ranging from band geeks to the goths to skaters, preps, etc. And they all did their own thing, but they were united in their hatred of Tina, who had tried to use her own Jewish heritage to bully people into doing what she wanted. And I'll let your imaginations wander on that particular point. As a result, the kids from multiple cliques united and denounced her. Mortal enemies all got together to say no. And what was her response? Again, I'm going to remind you that I'm not making any of this up. Tina said, "I am a Jew. Look at my big nose. You can't do this to me." Well, after insulting a ton of other popular and influential kids on campus, throwing a tantrum about the prom, and a few other shenanigans, Tina was poised to lose it all. So what did she do? She convinced the administration to suspend all student body elections, making her the de facto senior year president. I learned this the hard way when I tried to run as student body dictator. Again, 100% true. I even knew how I was going to do it. I had all these great communist posters in mind. It didn't work out. It was going to be a glorious joke, and she killed it. Our senior year, Tina made it her personal goal to reshape the school and all of its activities in her image, smacking down any and every event idea, Spirit Week activity, and class-defining trait that did not match her Regina George tastes. The queen bee had taken over. Now, before we get around to what she actually did for prom, I need to talk about what I was up to. My senior year was a personal renaissance. And what do I mean by that? Well, I was basically Ichikawa from The Dangers in My Heart, from my sophomore year to the end of my junior year. Oh, how I shudder to admit that. But The Dangers in My Heart is an amazing anime, and you should be watching it. If anything, so that way you can understand the whole Ichikawa reference. Well, my moment to turn everything around at school had come after an abysmal reputation. I enrolled into the school male beauty pageants. Yes, this was a thing. 10 lads from the school would compete in swimwear, talents, and fashion. For the evening gown presentation, I got to wear a super nice tux, courtesy of a local wedding fashion store. But I was also paired off with a girl who despised me, April McQueen. She had hated me ever since our freshman year when I had the audacity to try to ask her out, and went to extreme lengths to avoid and deride me. And at the same time, remember, I was a creepy Ichikawa kind of guy, so I can't really blame her. But at the rehearsal of the pageant, things were just so awkward between us, I had to bury the hatchet. So on the night of the contest, in front of half of the school, I apologized to her for things that happened in the past, and I offered her a goodwill platter of homemade brownies. And let me tell you this, those were some awesome brownies. April accepted my apology, and while I did not win the beauty pageant, my social star immediately skyrocketed, just as Tina's was in the garbage disposal. As a participant in the competition, I got a coupon that made it financially possible for me to even go to the prom. Well, now then, with that explanation out of the way, let's talk about the plans for the prom. Tina did to the juniors what the seniors had done to her and took control of planning the entire thing. She refused to use the tried and true DJs that the school had hired in the past. She canceled the school's contract with the University of Arizona to use their fantastic and spacious ballroom, and instead decided to prove her Jewishness by having the prom in a very small, very cramped dance hall at a local Jewish community center. This same place was at the same time having a Holocaust memorial display. Yeah, remember that for later. Well, after failing to get a date for the prom, my good friend Ben Phillips encouraged me to go big. Hey man, just because you were turned down doesn't mean you can't make it. Both literally and figuratively, Ben had me ask out the girls' basketball team's center, Casey Rudd. Together, we made a pond out of her truck and filled it with goldfish and a silly sign on a fishing rod. Of all the fish in the sea, will you go with me to the prom? Miraculously, the girl, easily a foot taller than me and able to fold me into knots, said yes. Now, when the night of the dance came, something you have to know about the preceding events is this. The Phillips family were superhumans. They threw the best parties. Anything they wanted to do, they made it happen, no matter what. So, when Ben turned his backyard into a fairy tale fantasy with a magical tent, that is exactly what he and his siblings created. Ben and his date, with me and mine and a few other couples, had a great meal and a group photo shoot before heading on over to the dance. And that is when we transitioned from a night of dreams to a night of nightmares. The Jewish Community Center did not have the space or infrastructure to accommodate hundreds of students. This forced us to wait in a long line surrounded on all sides by graphic depictions of Holocaust victims. So I'm staring at the worst of what humanity is capable of, while incoherent thudding stuff that was apparently music gave everyone a tremendous headache. It got even worse when a guy a few slots ahead began feeling up his girlfriend while gaunt ghosts stared down at them. Again, I am not lying about this stuff. When we entered the small dance hall, it was so cramped that you had to shove your way through a crush of humans. People were hyperventilating from being squeezed so closely together. There was no dancing at all as the music made us all deaf. My group all locked hands to keep ourselves together, and one drunk football player tried decking me for reasons unknown. His buddy had to restrain him and was apologizing as loudly as he could. Apparently, this guy had gotten zousted before coming to the prom and was trying to murder anyone who made eye contact with him. My group finally made it to the other side of the dance hall where there was the designated purse pile, where all the girls at this so-called dance would discard their purses and their shoes before going into the crush that was the dance. These items were chaperoned by the same people keeping watch on the high wall. And when I say that, the high wall is where everyone was dragged to who had passed out from drinking too much alcohol, or from snorting stuff in the bathroom, or just passing out from hyperventilating. This is where they had all been dragged by their friends and were unceremoniously slumped in a long line against the wall. In this environment, it was impossible for us to enjoy ourselves, let alone talk. The noise that was pretending to be music gave us all, like I said, these splitting headaches, and it took roughly 20 minutes for us all to realize that this is not good, and just about as much time to recover our hearing once we finally left. We tried to dance a little bit, but eventually our group just had to retreat to the wall, and just amidst the combination of head-splitting ruckus, the drugs, the alcohol, no room to let anybody do anything, and you just had this weird amalgamated mass of horny teens trying to hump each other and nothing's going on because they're all packed together tighter than sardines. Well, it was time to kind of escape this hellhole. Ben's partner in crime, Eddie the Refrigerator, which is his real nickname from high school. I just changed his first name, but he was known as the Refrigerator, shouldered his way through the crowd, smashing blazed teens aside and cleaving a path of bodies through the chaos. We left the prom, we ran past a group of teachers just as despondent and soulless as the teams slumped up against the high wall, and we escaped to our cars and we eventually drove off to a distant, abandoned parking lot, where Ben got out a picnic of small snacks and bubbly to drink. He had also brought along a boombox. We then had our own small prom in the middle of this abandoned parking lot, and for the first time since the photo shoot, we were enjoying ourselves. And that was my one and only prom. Tina got her special night, and just about everyone at school hated it. She was shunned until graduation, and to my recollection, everyone did their best to forget that night. So many people had also been so drunk and high that I doubt they even remembered anything that happened. And as for myself, I remain one of the few sober witnesses to just the debauchery that was there at the prom. Now, aside from this story being worth a bucket of laughs and the fact that it should be adapted into an HBO miniseries, why am I telling you this story on a channel about writing? Well, it's about those darn prom episodes. Do these writers even understand the glorious goldmine of delicious awkwardness and horrible teenage drama that they're sitting on? Most writers use their prom stories to either play up tried and true teenage romances or to play out the prom that they wish they could have had. And if their prom is anything like mine, I guess I can kind of understand that. But while I won't begrudge them the chance to write those kinds of stories that they want to write, I have to say that there's so much more that they could be doing with this premise. Proms are about the culmination of our many stories. They are a shared experience between strangers, friends, and enemies. My prom night would be a weird, hilarious, and horrifying event all on its own, but by adding my own personal tale and Tina's to the mix, you start to realize what this night really meant. And if I were to add Ben's own tragic romantic exploits to the mix, Eddie's own bizarre tale, or April's personal outlook on the night's events, it would paint an even crazier picture than what I have told you just right here. And it would also be a much longer video. When you write a prom story, it should not just include the characters, but their stories and reasons for being there that night. And as a culmination, prom night should be a fulfillment or a refutation of all the hopes, dreams, and actions that these characters bring to it. Another thing to consider is this: prom for the older students is the end. After that, there's very little time left before graduation. Or it could also be the last teenage fantasy before getting your diploma and stepping into the world of adults. There's something magical about prom. The hope for one last chance at romance. The chance to be redeemed. The chance to cut loose and make all the wrong decisions. The chance to bare your soul. The chance to be a hero. Or in Tina's case, the chance for petty revenge. That is what makes prom so grand. And yet, it is a dream, a fantasy. That's what most movies and prom specials don't really show. How many people break up after prom? How many people utterly forget that night or try to forget it? How many people just simply move on and grow up and they just look down on prom as a whole? And that's it. It's just an end. Prom stories are utterly bizarre and unique in that they are the last teenage fantasy before graduation. That's probably why so many writers who write for teenage audiences go back to proms and explore it. And my point is this: if you want to write a prom story that is more than just a shallow wish fulfillment, then get dirty with the story. Thoroughly explore your characters leading up to prom, what prom means for them in the moment and afterwards. Make this night the climax of their personal arcs and choices. Color the event with victories and defeats. Acknowledge that it's just one night and that life goes on afterwards. Treat prom as the ending that it is and as the new beginning that it represents. What you do the next day and long afterwards is what really defines these teens as they become adults. If you can capture that in a prom story, you will accomplish more than just a simple television special or a passing chapter in a book. You will have created a relatable bit of fiction that speaks to your audience. So, with all that said, I'm going to rewatch The Promenade and walk back down memory lane, dripping in warm, sweet oil. If you found my story entertaining in any kind of way, then please check out my other books, which I can guarantee are even more enjoyable. I'm sure that you'll find an adventure that sweeps you right off your feet and will not leave you slumped up against the high wall, like so many people I knew. And if you're a novice author looking for more writing advice and insights, please check out our other videos here on our channel and over at our podcast. Links for all of these things and more are in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this crazy journey that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
And kill everyone after? It's not vain. It's extra sinister.
Unhand them, you fiend! I'm confused.